The arrival, the morning started like any other in Tokyo, New York, and London. People rushed to work, children played in parks, and scientists continued their research in laboratories around the world. Nobody expected that by noon, everything would change forever. Dr. Elena Vasquez was analyzing deep space signals at the Arecibo Observatory when her screen erupted with data. The coffee mug slipped from her hand, shattering on the floor. She didn't notice. Her eyes remained fixed on the impossible readings before her. Thousands of objects were approaching Earth at speeds that defied conventional physics. They weren't asteroids or comets. They were ships. Within minutes, every space agency on Earth confirmed the same terrifying reality. An alien armada of unprecedented size had entered the solar system. The ships moved with perfect coordination, surrounding Earth like predators circling prey. Each vessel dwarfed humanity's largest space stations, their surfaces covered in weapons that glowed with ominous energy. General Marcus Thompson stood in the Pentagon's Situation Room, watching as more ships appeared on the tracking displays. His staff worked frantically around him, but he knew their military preparations were meaningless. Earth's defenses were designed for threats from within, not from the stars. The most advanced fighter jets and missiles humanity possessed would be useless against technology that could cross interstellar space. The alien fleet held position just beyond the moon's orbit for 3 hours, long enough for panic to spread across every continent, for governments to activate emergency protocols, and for billions of people to realize their world would never be the same. Then, without warning, a single ship separated from the formation and descended toward Earth. The vessel landed in the Sahara Desert, its arrival witnessed by hastily assembled military forces from a dozen nations. The ship was beautiful in its alien design, with surfaces that shifted between solid matter and pure energy. When its doors opened, the beings that emerged made humanity collectively hold its breath. Emperor Craxus of the Zephyrian Empire stood 12 feet tall, his crystalline body refracting light into rainbow patterns. His 4 arms moved with fluid grace, and his 3 eyes surveyed the human delegation with obvious disdain. Behind him, ranks of warriors stood at attention, their armor humming with barely contained power. Secretary General Amara Okonkwo stepped forward, representing the United Nations. She had volunteered for this role, knowing it might be humanity's last diplomatic act. Her voice remained steady despite the fear coursing through her veins. Welcome to Earth. I am Secretary General Okonkwo, speaking for all humanity. We come in peace. The Emperor's response came not through sound but directly into their minds, his telepathic voice cold and dismissive. Peace is irrelevant. I am Craxus, ruler of 17,000 worlds. Your species has been evaluated and found suitable for incorporation into our empire. You will surrender your sovereignty within 1 rotation of your planet. Resistance will result in the complete sterilization of your biosphere. The ultimatum hung in the desert air like a death sentence. General Thompson's hand moved instinctively toward his sidearm, but Amara's slight gesture stopped him. This wasn't the time for futile gestures of defiance. They needed information, time, and most importantly, hope. Your Majesty, Amara said carefully, surely a peaceful transition would benefit everyone. What exactly does incorporation entail for our people? Craxus regarded her with what might have been amusement. Your species will be redistributed across our empire as laborers. Your planet's resources will be harvested for our expansion. Those who prove useful will be allowed to continue existing. Your governments, cultures, and individual freedoms will cease. This is not negotiable. The human delegation exchanged glances. They had prepared for many scenarios, but complete enslavement hadn't been among them. The Zephyrians clearly saw humanity as nothing more than another resource to be exploited. We need time to consider your proposal, Amara said. Surely you understand that coordinating 8 billion people requires 1 rotation, Craxus interrupted, his mental voice sharp as broken glass. 24 of your hours? After that, we begin the harvest with or without your cooperation. Those who submit will be treated with minimal discomfort. Those who resist will serve as examples to others. Without another word, the Emperor turned and returned to his ship. The vessel lifted off, leaving the human delegation standing in the desert sand, the weight of humanity's fate crushing down upon them. The emergency summit convened within hours. Every world leader, either in person or through secure connection, gathered in the United Nations headquarters. The debate was fierce but brief. Some argued for surrender, hoping to preserve some portion of humanity. Others called for resistance, preferring death to slavery. But it was Dr. Vasquez, connected via satellite from her observatory, who changed everything. "There's something you need to know," she said, her image flickering on the main screen. "For the past 5 years, my team has been working on something we called Project Harmony. We thought we were developing a new form of quantum communication, but we've discovered something else. Something that might give us a chance," she explained quickly. The project had accidentally tapped into what they now understood was the fundamental frequency of consciousness itself. Every thinking being in the universe resonated at specific frequencies, and humanity had unknowingly developed the ability to interfere with these frequencies. It wasn't a weapon in the traditional sense, but rather a way to disrupt the neural pathways of any species whose frequency they could identify. "You're saying we can shut down their minds?" General Thompson asked, leaning forward. "Not shut down," Elena corrected. "More like overwhelm. Imagine suddenly hearing every thought of every person on Earth simultaneously. The Zephyrians are telepathic, which means they're particularly vulnerable. We could theoretically broadcast a signal that would render them unable to function without causing permanent damage." The room erupted in discussion. It was a desperate plan, untested and potentially catastrophic if it failed. But it was also the only option that didn't involve humanity's extinction or enslavement. The vote was unanimous. Earth would make its stand. The next 20 hours were the longest in human history. While world leaders prepared humanity's response, scientists worked frantically to calibrate Project Harmony for the Zephyrian frequency. Elena and her team had managed to analyze the telepathic signatures from Craxus's communication, but they would only have one chance to get it right. Meanwhile, something remarkable happened across Earth. The threat of annihilation accomplished what centuries of diplomacy had failed to achieve. Old enemies embraced, religious differences were set aside, and humanity stood truly united for the first time. In cities and villages, people gathered not to riot or despair, but to support one another. If these were to be humanity's final hours, they would face them together. Secret preparations were made across the globe. The world's nuclear arsenals were quietly retargeted skyward, not as a real defense but as a distraction if needed. Underground bunkers were evacuated to make room for quantum transmitters that would broadcast Project Harmony's signal. Every satellite capable of transmission was realigned to ensure global coverage. As the deadline approached, Amara Okonkwo stood once again in the Sahara Desert. This time she wasn't alone. Representatives from every nation stood with her, a symbolic gesture that humanity would face its fate as one species. General Thompson was there too, along with Dr. Vasquez, who had flown in from Puerto Rico. Hidden beneath their formal clothing, each wore a neural shield, a hastily developed protection against their own weapon. The Zephyrian ship descended exactly 24 hours after its first landing. Emperor Craxus emerged with twice as many warriors, clearly expecting either submission or resistance. His 3 eyes surveyed the assembled humans with visible satisfaction. "You have gathered your leaders. Excellent. This will simplify the transition. What is your decision?" Amara stepped forward, her chin raised despite the fear in her heart. "Humanity has considered your proposal carefully, Your Majesty. We have a counter-proposal." The Emperor's crystalline form darkened, a sign of his displeasure. "There is no counter-proposal. Submit or be destroyed." "Actually," Amara continued, her voice growing stronger, "there is a third option. You leave our solar system immediately and never return. In exchange, we won't demonstrate why humanity should never be underestimated." The silence that followed was deafening. Then Craxus laughed, a sound like shattering crystal that echoed across the desert. His warriors raised their weapons, energy building to lethal levels. "You dare threaten the Zephyrian Empire? Your species hasn't even achieved faster-than-light travel. You have no weapons capable of reaching our ships. This bravado is pointless." Amara smiled, an expression that clearly confused the Emperor. "Your Majesty, there's something you should know about humans. We're remarkably creative when our survival is at stake. Dr. Vasquez?" Elena stepped forward, holding a simple tablet. "We call it Project Harmony. Would you like a demonstration?" The moment Elena activated the tablet, every Zephyrian warrior froze. Their weapons powered down as their minds were flooded with a cacophony of human consciousness. 8 billion voices, thoughts, emotions, and memories crashed into their telepathic awareness like a tsunami. The warriors dropped to their knees, their crystalline forms flickering between solid and energy states. Emperor Craxus remained standing, his powerful mind managing to resist the initial wave. His 3 eyes blazed with fury as he struggled to maintain his composure. What is this aberration? This is humanity saying no, Amara replied calmly. We've learned to weaponize the one thing you never expected, our chaos. 8 billion minds all thinking, feeling, and dreaming differently. To a telepathic species like yours, we're not just noise. We're a symphony of discord that your ordered minds can't process. The Emperor tried to respond, but Elena increased the signal strength slightly. Even Craxus wavered, his massive form trembling. Around the world, similar scenes played out as Project Harmony's signal reached every Zephyrian ship in orbit. The mighty armada that had threatened Earth's destruction now drifted helplessly, their crews incapacitated by humanity's collective consciousness. Impossible, Craxus managed to project, though his telepathic voice was weak. You're primitive. You have no unity, no collective purpose. General Thompson stepped forward. That's where you're wrong. Our diversity isn't our weakness, it's our strength. Every human thinks differently, dreams differently, loves differently. You came here expecting to find another orderly civilization to conquer. Instead, you found chaos incarnate. The demonstration lasted exactly 60 seconds. When Elena deactivated the signal, the Zephyrian warriors remained on the ground, slowly recovering. Craxus himself had fallen to one knee, his crystalline form dulled and cracked. The Emperor, who had conquered 17,000 worlds, had been brought low by a species that had barely left its own planet. This is a taste, Amara said, her voice carrying across the desert. We can maintain this signal indefinitely. We can broadcast it throughout the galaxy if necessary. Every world you've conquered, every slave you've taken, they would all be free the moment we choose to act. Craxus slowly stood, his form gradually regaining its luster. For the first time, the humans saw something in his 3 eyes they hadn't expected. Respect. You would weaponize your own chaos. Remarkable. We prefer to call it creativity, Dr. Vasquez said. It's what happens when you corner a species that refuses to surrender. We adapt, we innovate, and we survive. The Emperor was silent for a long moment, his alien mind processing this unprecedented situation. No species had ever successfully resisted the Zephyrian Empire. Their technology was superior, their military might unmatched, but these humans had found a weakness nobody had imagined possible. You could destroy us all, Craxus finally admitted, but doing so would make you no better than us. You're right, Amara agreed, which is why we're offering you a choice. Leave Earth in peace and we'll keep our discovery to ourselves. Continue to threaten us and every enslaved species in your empire will learn what we've learned. How long would your empire last if your subjects could incapacitate you with a thought? The implications were staggering. The Zephyrian Empire maintained control through fear and telepathic dominance. If their subjects learned to harness their own mental chaos, the empire would crumble within cycles. It was a threat more devastating than any weapon. Craxus turned to look at his warriors, still struggling to regain their composure. Then he looked up at the sky, where his massive fleet drifted powerlessly. The might of the Zephyrian Empire, rendered helpless by a species they had dismissed as primitive. You offer us mercy, the Emperor said slowly. Why? We came to enslave you? Because, Amara replied, humans believe in redemption. We've made our own mistakes, conquered our own peoples, committed our own atrocities. We've learned that strength without mercy is just tyranny. We're offering you the chance to learn the same lesson. The desert wind blew sand across the gathered beings, human and alien alike. The moment stretched, pregnant with the weight of 2 civilizations' futures. Then something unprecedented happened. Emperor Craxus, ruler of 17,000 worlds, bowed to the human delegation. You have won more than a battle, he said, his telepathic voice now tinged with something that might have been humility. You have shown us that our way is not the only way. We will withdraw from your system. Earth will be marked as forbidden in our star charts. That's not enough, General Thompson interjected, surprising everyone. Those 17,000 worlds you've conquered, they deserve the same choice we had. Craxus's form flickered with agitation. You ask too much. The Empire cannot simply dissolve. We're not asking you to dissolve, Elena said, understanding where Thompson was leading. We're asking you to evolve. Transform your empire from one of conquest to one of cooperation. Give your subjects a voice, a choice. Prove that the Zephyrians can be more than conquerors. The proposition hung in the air like a challenge. The humans were offering the Zephyrians something more valuable than mercy. They were offering them a chance at redemption, at becoming something greater than what they were. And if we refuse? Craxus asked, though his tone suggested he already knew the answer. Then we'll ensure every enslaved species learns what we've discovered, Amara said firmly. The revolution won't come from us. It will come from within your own empire. The choice is yours. Evolution or revolution. The Emperor stood in silence for what felt like hours but was only minutes. His 3 eyes closed as he communed telepathically with his fleet commanders, his advisors, perhaps even his homeworld. The humans waited, knowing that this moment would determine not just Earth's fate, but the fate of thousands of worlds. Finally, Craxus opened his eyes. You humans have a saying, "The enemy of my enemy is my friend." We came here as conquerors and you have made us face our own weakness. Perhaps it is time for the Empire to change. He turned to his warriors, who had finally recovered enough to stand. With a gesture, he commanded them to return to the ship. Then he faced the human delegation one last time. We will withdraw. We will return to our empire and begin the process of reformation. It will not be easy. Many will resist, but you have shown us that the greatest strength sometimes comes from apparent weakness. Your chaos, your diversity, your stubborn refusal to surrender. These are not flaws to be corrected, but strengths to be admired. The Emperor began walking toward his ship, then paused. We will monitor your progress, humans. In time, when you have developed your own means of traveling the stars, perhaps we will meet again. Not as conqueror and conquered, but as equals. We look forward to that day, Amara replied. As the Zephyrian ship lifted off, the human delegation remained in the desert, watching as it rejoined the fleet. One by one, the massive vessels began to move away from Earth, their departure tracked by every telescope and satellite humanity possessed. Within hours, they had passed beyond Jupiter's orbit. Within days, they were gone from the solar system entirely. The news of humanity's victory spread across the globe instantly. Cities erupted in celebration, but it was a subdued joy, tempered by the knowledge of how close they had come to annihilation. More importantly, it was tempered by the responsibility they now carried. In the weeks that followed, Project Harmony was refined and secured. The technology was placed under the joint control of all nations, a safeguard that could only be activated by unanimous global consent. Earth had found its ultimate defense, but the leaders understood that with great power came great responsibility. Dr. Elena Vasquez returned to her observatory, but now with a new mission. If humanity was going to join the galactic community, they needed to be ready. The encounter with the Zephyrians had shown them that the universe was vast and dangerous, but also full of potential allies and friends. General Thompson restructured Earth's defense forces into something new, not just a military force, but a diplomatic and scientific corps designed to protect Earth while promoting peaceful contact with other species. The age of human isolation was over. Secretary General Amara Okonkwo stood before the United Nations, addressing a world forever changed. We stood together, she said, her voice carrying to every corner of the globe. When faced with extinction, we didn't surrender to fear or despair. We found strength in our diversity, power in our chaos, and hope in our unity. This is just the beginning. The galaxy now knows that humans are not to be underestimated. But more importantly, they know we are not conquerors. We are defenders, innovators, and when necessary, liberators. Her speech continued, outlining humanity's new path forward. Investment in space technology increased 1,000-fold. Educational systems were restructured to prepare the next generation for a galactic community. The petty conflicts that had divided humanity for millennia suddenly seemed insignificant compared to the vast frontier that awaited them. 6 months later, long-range sensors detected a small probe approaching Earth. It carried a simple message in multiple languages, including newly learned English. From the free worlds of the former Zephyrian Empire, thank you. The transformation had begun. The empire that had threatened to crush Earth had itself been transformed by one human ultimatum. The Zephyrians were slowly converting their conquered worlds into a confederation of free systems. It wasn't without conflict. Many Zephyrian nobles resisted the changes, but the momentum was unstoppable. Earth had not only saved itself but had sparked a revolution across thousands of worlds. The story spread throughout the galaxy, carried by traders, refugees, and explorers. The small blue planet that had never achieved faster-than-light travel had brought down the most powerful empire in known space. Not through violence, but through the simple act of saying no. As the first anniversary of First Contact approached, humanity prepared to take its next step. The first human-built interstellar vessel, appropriately named Harmony, was nearing completion. It would carry humanity's first ambassadors to the stars, not as conquerors or subjects, but as equals ready to join a community of worlds. The Empire had indeed tried to crush Earth, but in trying to break humanity's spirit, they had instead forged it into something unbreakable. One human demand, the demand to remain free, had not just shattered the Zephyrians' plans but had transformed the galaxy itself. Looking up at the stars, humans no longer saw distant lights but future destinations, potential friends, and endless possibilities. The universe had tested humanity and found them worthy. Now it was time for humanity to show the universe what they could become when they reached for the stars, not with weapons of war, but with hands extended in friendship and minds open to infinite possibilities. The story of humanity's stand against the Zephyrian Empire became legend, told on 1,000 worlds in 1,000 different ways. But the core truth remained the same. Sometimes the smallest voice saying the simplest word could change everything. And humanity's no had echoed across the cosmos, forever changing the destiny of countless civilizations. Earth stood ready for whatever came next, united, determined, and unafraid. The galaxy would learn what humans had always known, that their greatest strength had never been in their weapons or technology, but in their unconquerable spirit and their infinite capacity to surprise, adapt, and overcome any challenge the universe could throw at them.